Thank you. What's up, New York City? Tribeca Film Festival. Let's get it cracking. Fellas, it is a complete honor to be sitting here with you two giants. I gotta say, I'm living a dream to be here with you guys. What you've done through the span of years is you can't compare it to anything. It's Marvin Gaye, it's Sinatra, they were top tier in music. I feel like in art, you should flow and be free. And these two artists had a big impact on me. And in film and cinema, I hold you guys there like top tier, like nothing else out there. So I have to say that, get that out there. Yeah. So I got some questions. Okay, Mean Streets, phenomenal, incredible film. Incredible film. This film was released October 14th, just 1 month after I was born. I was still growing my fingernails and hair. You guys were telling a realistic story about the city that I was about to learn and grow up in. And New York City's changed a lot since the 70s, but the film still holds up because it taps into something fundamental about the city's essence, the struggle, the hustle, the dreams, the loyalty, and what is it about the film that speaks to the timeless spirit of New York?
That for me?
That's for you.
I never thought of it as one place. I mean, for me, the city is, in a sense, and I have traveled extensively, many places around the world, but for me, this Manhattan is the universe. And so everything I see and everything I react to is filtered through my experience in the city. The city has changed a lot, there's no doubt about it. I mean, just look at the neighborhood that we shot the movie in. Is now a very chic neighborhood. It's very, if you told me back in 1961 that it was going to be, incredible couture places and all kinds of, it really would have, no one would have believed such a thing. We had imagined that the place would have been leveled, like the 5 points ultimately was leveled. Seriously, the old buildings, they take everything down. This is New York. But getting out of that, I mean, really, the point is that all I could do was see what was in front of me and what I was experiencing growing up down there with different cultures, not really knowing who we are, whether we're American or Sicilian or Neapolitan. We just couldn't quite figure it out. Being part of a almost tribal society coming from Sicily, for me. And then at the same time, 2 blocks away, there was this place that eventually I found, which was NYU. That literally, like 5 or 6 blocks down Houston Street, going from east to west. And it was in another world. So the opportunity was there. But we were mired in a world, I think, that was very primal and had to do with blood and trust and loyalty. And that was the key. And I saw this go through. I saw my father go through it. I saw my uncle. I saw my brother, my mother, all of them go through and live this way. So that's one aspect of it. And I think no matter what the immigrant group is, the immigrant experience, I think it's generally the same pattern in a way. Who are we in this country? What are we? It's a great experiment. Will it continue? Can we make it continue? But I think it's really trying to find ourselves, and somehow this picture came out of it primarily because I was trying to figure out what the hell is going on in terms of pretty rough street stuff, organized crime, some very good people, some very nice people who didn't have the opportunity for education, and all living under this oppression of organized crime. And at the same time, there's the church around the corner. So for me, because I had asthma, they would take me to the movie theaters, and I would escape into movies, in the theater, but at the same time into the church. And there was this one priest who made a big difference in our lives. He was very young and tried to explain to us that education, and gave us books to read, music to listen to. And bottom line is that, basically, you don't have to live the way they're living, in a way, to be stuck and oppressed this way, to utilize the opportunities if you can. But in any event, it was always the Mean Streets is about this too, which is about the idea of Christian ideals within a world which is totally corrupt. So that was the impetus of it. And whether it has to do specifically with New York, that's for me. But I know it's a universal story, I would think.
Wow. So this is to both of you. You speak of mafia. Yeah. What do you remember most about the atmosphere and the energy making Mean Streets? Did you need to get permission from the guys in the neighborhood to shoot what you did?
We had gotten some of the neighborhood guys in it, actually.
Yeah. Nice guys. Not like, obviously, people who are on upper echelon, so to speak, not gonna have their picture taken. You gotta watch where you put the cameras.
That's amazing.
I did have a couple of guys I did wanted to shoot in, Bob Uricola's hallway, right? So we did up in Mulberry Street, but the building's still there. And, we're shooting in there, but we had to pay. My father had to go talk to the guy who owned the building. And, we didn't get much sympathy from them. Basically, my father saying, it's a kid from the neighborhood, come on. You're gonna charge him that much? He goes, what? He makes money on this, he'll make a movie, he'll go away, we're still here. This is the cost, this is what it's gonna cost. That was it. Smooth. There was no romantic, sticking together. It was like, you pay. The San Gennaro Society, we had to pay. Francis Coppola gave us $5,000 for that because we couldn't shoot in the festival because we had to contribute to the San Gennaro Society. Not saying anything, just. And as soon as we sold the picture, I gave him the money back, for instance, $5,000. It was great.
Amazing. Was it hard to get like Hollywood, to understand the story, to back you, to get involved, to know you're telling this realistic story and it's not like this love story, fantasy, Disneyland type of thing? This is real thing. Did they get what you were bringing to the table? Was it hard to get this distributed?
They don't care. It's actually, I think, Marty, tell me if I'm wrong, maybe you should even answer this, but Jonathan Taplin put the money up?
Yeah, Jonathan Taplin got a gentleman named E. Lee Perry to give us the money. It was $650,000 at the time. And it was independent producing. And I didn't even think, I always tell this, but people don't believe. I don't even think it was going to get distributed. I just thought we would have it on a shelf somewhere, and one day, because I knew the cinema was changing, and I knew one day it could be shown somehow. And then people would get a sense of what it really was like back there in the 60s and early 70s in the Lower East Side. But it turns out that Warner Brothers really liked it. It was John Calley and Ted Ashley. Boy, they really liked it very much, and they bought it right away.
Smart guys. Smart people. Your first like feature film and the film soundtrack. I gotta say, you are like the best at putting music in movies. I can't tell you how many songs I discovered through your movies. And I download them and I listen to them because they're great songs. So in this first film, the film soundtrack is almost a character itself, evoking a time and place with its mix of the Stones, the Rosettes, doo-wop, Italian opera, and early rock. How did you go about choosing the songs? What role did you see music playing in establishing the film's atmosphere and authenticity? Did you feel like you were also documenting a slice of the city's musical history?
Well, I think, well, Bob, you know that when we were downtown, because we kind of knew each other when I think we were 16. Where did you hang out? Maybe you could...
Yeah, 2 blocks south of where you were, right where we shot, actually.
Yeah.
Main Street, Mulberry Street, that area. The music was there. That was all the music we heard in the jukeboxes and the neighborhood. But Marty, you know so much about music and everything, more than I do. But those were you were using the songs that we knew and felt, plus others maybe, but that's what it was.
I mean, basically, music was, television was still something that was not the way it is now. So it was a small screen. We saw movies on TV, some comedy shows, but bottom line is, music was the key. Music came out, everybody was talking. In the summer, there was never any air conditioning, so sometimes we slept in the fire escape, and the guys across the street would be playing, big band music, and then opera would be coming out of somebody else's window. And then there's the Ronettes playing in the jukebox, and it's echoing. There's Tony Bennett down the block. I mean, all of this was really what had happened was it became a soundtrack to our lives. We couldn't imagine a quiet moment. Quite honestly, it's very noisy and living together that way. Even in the middle of the night, the trucks going by, the garbage being collected, people yelling. It was a constant Bruegel-esque kind of world. But primarily, always, there was a soundtrack to it. And that soundtrack was unlimited. I mean, even jazz coming in at that time, the 50s, late 50s, it was quite something. Between that and popular music and rhythm and blues, but then, the girl groups coming in, and then Motown hitting. I mean, the film actually kind of took place in effect, it really is 1963. It was about a month before Kennedy was killed, when the story that it's based upon actually kind of happened. And so the music that's in my mind is always there. Okay, I got the Rolling Stones, I got the British, I slip and slide a little bit with that, but primarily music conducted our lives, including liturgical music in the church.
Speaking of the Stones, you got the Rolling Stones music in your first movie. I mean, you wasn't really Martin Scorsese just yet. And they were the Rolling Stones.
I don't know how he did it. It was Jonathan Taplin. I think we were able to pay the sync license for I wanted 3 songs. We got 2. Yeah.
That's great, man. That's insane.
I mean, the doo-wop stuff, I think we got pretty good, the Nutmegs and, Johnny Ace and stuff like that. We got a fairly good deal on. Don't forget the whole film cost $650. So whatever it was that Jonathan did, it was amazing.
That wasn't a lot of money back then. $650 was not a lot of money back
No, $650,000 was not a lot. I guess I don't know, today an independent film may be made for $5 million, maybe, that would be the equivalent. I may be wrong on that, but it was quite low budget. And I had to learn how to make the film by working with Roger Corman and making an exploitation film with him the year before, which is called Boxcar Bertha, with Barbara Hershey and David Carradine and Bernie Casey and Barry Primus. And I learned how to make a movie to show up in the morning, even when you don't want to. And like you're there and you got to shoot, you have 25 setups in one day, and people are running around. You have no money, and you do it. You know, prior to that, I would make a film, you know, with my friends at NYU or whatever. And whenever we had the camera and the film, we would call, like Harvey Keitel would come in, my mother would get her in. And, you know, after a while, Harvey, after 2 years, would say, that's enough of this. You know, I have a life. But basically, we were making the same film. And it took, in other words, I had to learn how to be like a semi-professional through Corman. And then I applied the same thinking and actually the same people to make Mean Streets.
Shout out to Harvey Keitel. He's incredible. This is to you, Mr. De Niro. This was the first of many legendary collaborations. No, wait. I need to know about your character, Johnny Boy. Johnny Boy, there's a Johnny Boy in every neighborhood. I knew a few Johnny Boys coming up for sure. Did you base or model the character after a real person? How did you prepare for that role?
That's a question I'm gonna let Marty answer. I haven't had but Marty, because how he conceived it and so on.
Well, it's based on, all the characters are based on 2 or 3 very, very close friends, and a part of myself too. And it is, the shooting at the end did occur. I was in the car, I missed it by 5 minutes. I left the car. Luckily, my friend was with me. He said, "Oh, let's go home." We went home. Next thing you know, the car was shot up. And in those days, you know, guns were not as prevalent as they are now. So it was unheard of to have a gun in that neighborhood because of the organized crime. They don't want any attention brought to them, untoward attention. Like, you crazy kids, you're bringing the police in this neighborhood. Get out of here, don't ever do that again. So, you know, guns were anathema. And something happened, and whatever, we were lucky. And I went backwards from that because we could have been killed that night. And it's based on a character who's still alive. And he was the younger brother of one of my close friends. And he was loved for his anarchic spirit, like anarchy. Didn't care about anything, didn't care about anybody, saw through the bullshit, you know, on all levels, whether it was the organized crime or the church or anything. He just saw through it and wouldn't be part of it. It's also sort of based on my father's youngest brother, who was, you know, a tough street guy, and his nickname was Joe the Bug. Yeah. And he was always going in and out of jail. I asked my mother, "Where's Uncle Joe?" She goes, "He's back at college." Only this college has bars on the window. I said, "Again, yes." And my father would have to go visit him and work it out. But he was always, he was a very lovable person, but he was, and so the same with the Johnny Boy character that it was based on. He was really lovable. And he got away with so much because of his charm. And that's one of the things that Bob did in the film. One of the great things was that the one scene I didn't have written was one of the great scenes, really, which is you and Harvey in the back room, him explaining why he can't pay. You know, I had the money, and then I'm in a cartoon. You can't believe we're running it on. Never said all of that was improvised by Bob and Harv on the day. On the last day of shooting. I squeezed it in. We shot an hour and a half. Very American, wide shot, over the shoulder, that's it, you know? And it went on for like 10 minutes, the scene. And what he pointed out to me was that what I didn't have in the script was showing Johnny's charm to Harvey, to Charlie, the character of Charlie, and how he would get away with things, how he talked his way out of things, you know, and how he talked around them. And that, you improvised that in a rehearsal. We wrote down some notes, and I had to fight to get that extra 2 hours to shoot it, and I forgot the notes, remember? And he had to remember it all by himself. It was murder.
Right, well, what we did is we rehearsed it in New York, and I had stuff in and had the lay out the points to make, and then we'll go over it over. It was going over it before we shot the scene, so I had an idea. You know, Marty, we just somehow documented it as best we could at that time. So that's my.
But we had that scene edited, and it went on, and people, only a few people saw a rough cut of the picture. And a couple of friends of mine said, the scene's too long, cut it. So they pulled out half the scene, and I don't know, it didn't work. And then the last time I screened the picture, I only screened it for a few people. Nobody, paid attention to us at that time. The last person I screened it for was John Cassavetes. Right before the screening, it was Jay Cox and myself, and we said, you know what, let's put the whole scene back. Let's see what John says. And John looked at us and said, don't cut a goddamn frame. That's how we loved it.
That's real. That's real. The shots in your films. This was the first of many legend. This was the film that established, I think, your signature style. And you made this film with a shape and artistic vision and influence that influenced so many filmmakers. And I mean, I did rap videos. We were trying to copy what you guys have done. We did Casino, I did One Scott, I did Street Dreams was the name of the song, and we did the video just like Casino, and we had the late great Frank Vincent, who was nice enough,
Frank?
yes sir, to play a part in the video, and he was just the nicest guy ever. We became friends, and so yeah, I mean, but filmmakers all over the world have been doing what you do. Like, how did you do that?
As I say, I was kind of lucky in a sense that having that breathing thing, the asthma thing, I couldn't play sports or anything, so they didn't know what to do. They put me in a movie theater, and I was enveloped by all these films from Hollywood, and then I saw Italian films on TV, neorealist films, and that was a whole other experience. I was very young, I was 6 or 7 years old then, to see Open City and Paisan, and bicycle themes. Suddenly, it's a movie, but it doesn't seem like a movie, and yet I go to the movie theater and there's Wizard of Oz, and that's pretty good too. So, whoa, what is this thing, cinema? And then, right around the late 50s, Bob, there was all these foreign films coming in, particularly from France and Italy. And they were breaking up the language of how to tell a story with pictures. And it just infused in my head, you could do anything. You could do anything. You could turn the camera upside down. You don't have to move the camera at all. And we were like burning with an energy that it was almost like a dive and crash, like a kamikaze kind of effect. Like, let's go all for it completely. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, at least we tried.
Wow. Yeah. It seems like, the guy, I don't know what it's called, but there's someone, and they're not walking, but they're walking, they're floating, and they're walking.
It's on a dolly.
The dolly.
I put him on a dolly track.
The dolly, man. But the magic, that the way you shot it, it's like, and to shoot those scenes are incredible, and the lighting you use, it's very real, like the rooms are lit. Like, I think it draws us all in, like you escape when you're watching the films together. And you, in Main Street, you see it, like you've been doing movies for years. So, congrats.
Thank you.
On such an incredible, you two. When you were 16 and you knew each other, did you have discussions about getting into films? Did you know, like?
Well, actually, we had a mutual friend who would who was a very good dear friend of Marty's, and
His brother is Johnny Boy's based on.
his brother was Johnny Boy character, and he would go between the groups and he'd tell me what's going on with Marty, and I don't know what he told him about us, but back and forth, and then he said, Marty goes to NYU, and yeah, he's doing this play, or movies or whatever the hell. So, was it. And then years later, Marty and I saw Who's That Knocking. I'd seen it earlier, and then we had a Christmas dinner at Brian De Palma's house, and with Jay Cox, and what was it? No, Jay's
place with Verna, and then Brian put us together.
Yes. And then we talked about, about before and so on, and then I said, Who's That Knocking? It was a terrific movie, and it was great, and what you do, blah, blah, that world, and then it started up our relationship again.
I mean, actually what happened was that he was sitting there after dinner, and then he looked at me, and they had gone inside or something, I mean, it was a small place, and he said, you used to hang out with so-and-so and so-and-so. I said, yeah, how do you know? He said, I'm Bobby. I said, Bobby? Yeah, from Kenmare and Grand Street, remember the Alto Nights? I said, Bobby, oh my God, we had to realize, because De Palma put us together after you were doing Hi Mom, after you did that. And he said, you got to meet this guy. And then you had seen Who's That Knocking. It was very accurate as to the nature of that subculture in the neighborhood. He identified with that, and so Mean Streets was finally put together, and he came on.
You guys have given us movie magic, and I can go through all the list of the movies you guys done here, and everyone out there would agree these movies have done some lasting effect things on us all. Raging Bull, Goodfellas. Goodfellas taught us a lot. It was helpful. Yeah. I mean, is there a film out there, Marty, I'll ask you, is there a film out there that you wish you did? And you, sir, is there a role out there that you wish you did?
I feel I've been lucky and I've done okay.
I agree. Covered a lot of territory,
You did it.
Me, the problem is I wouldn't be able to. It's complicated because I admire the films that I grew up with and that affected me so much that the one thing I had to learn was that I'm not part of that. In other words, I don't come from the same culture. Let's say there's an Italian filmmaker whose work I loved, but their parents were, poets, and they're an upper class aristocracy from northern Italy, and we're from, the South. It's a whole different thing. And so I can never attain what they did because I don't have the same culture. But they inspired me. So no matter where they got it from, it doesn't matter what I'm picking up from it. I see something the way I see it. You could look at Rossellini's Paisan, and it was made for the war effort right after the war in Italy in 1945, and the Americans helping them make it. It doesn't matter. The film, very often, now especially, music and cinema and literature, of course, but they're out of context. In other words, you take something out of context and the work of art stands on its own. It doesn't necessarily need the context if it has something to say for people 100 years from now. You see, if it's universal, Very often we find that a film or something was vilified when it came out, and 30 years later people say it's terrific. Or a piece of music, vilified, then 20 years later say, that was brilliant. Look, this is what they were doing there already. Ahead of us, my God, 15, 20 years ahead of us, and nobody paid attention. So you can't always take fashion, for the truth, so to speak. And the truth is the lasting power. It has something to say to your heart, That's what it's about. So, I'd love to make the Red Shoes, for example. That's this incredible dancing, the dance, the camera move, the use of color, the madness of the impresario who demanded complete loyalty to him. This incredible character, Lermontov, the ballerinas, all this craziness. I'm not a ballet enthusiast, I don't know. I'm looking at this film in terms of the passion and people who are willing to die for their art. This is really interesting. I was 10 years old, when I saw that. So it always what affected me that way. You know, so you can't make it, but I go back like to the well. I drink from it, you know.
So how hard was it to come up with the next film after? Did you have it already in your head, like what you wanted to do next after Main Street?
Well, Brian gave me Paul Schrader's script of Taxi Driver. John Calley over at Warner Brothers, when they bought Main Streets, looked at me and said, you know, there's a script here called Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. And Ellen Burstyn, who just was in The Exorcist, you know. And he said, you know what people are saying, they really like Main Streets, they think you're great and all that, but you can't direct women. So he said, read this script. And I did, and I liked it. And I decided I should do it. And it was my first studio movie, in a way. And so that was the transition between, Bob, you were doing Novecento, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was doing Novecento.
With Bertolucci. By the time you were finished, we were able to do Taxi Driver.
I jumped right into it after doing Bertolucci's film, yeah. We met in Cannes once we worked on the script. I was preparing there, and as soon as I got back 2 weeks later, 2.5 weeks later, we were shooting in New York.
So I was trying to learn how to direct women.
That's loyalty, that's friendship. I want to ask you about friendship and loyalty. You guys have done so many movies together. You're a duo that we've never seen before and will never see again. And how easy is it working together? Like through the years, how is it like?
Well, it's been great. I've been very fortunate to wind up in a situation with Marty like this all these years. It's been great. It's been really a great experience, to say the least. I'm lucky.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that we kept going back because you use the word trust. There's different levels of trust, and on an artistic level, there's trust. He would say something, that's okay. We try it. Then at a certain point, I always tell the story. At a certain point, he said, "I had this idea. It's maybe crazy, and I just don't tell me, just do it." And invariably, I liked it. I mean, I said, "No, that's great." And then you do this and this, and you go. And so for me, there was a kind of trust in the art itself. And then we just had our own way of talking to each other, I guess, and we'd be often in a conversation. Often we weren't even talking about the movie. We're just talking about personal stuff, and then the AD would come over and say, "Hey, we got to shoot." You know? And so we felt comfortable that way, but I also learned from him a great deal. I learned about acting, because I never took any acting courses. I don't know what that is. I have no idea what theater is. But I learned about, like in Taxi Driver, I had to play the part of this creepy guy in the back seat, right? And it's a good example about trust. He's Travis, right? And I'm in the back. And already I'm playing this awful character, you know? And it's a long story, but what had happened, the guy who was supposed to play it got hurt in an accident, eventually died from it, whatever. And there was nobody else. Yeah, I mean, and like, it was the last week of shooting, and I didn't want to trust anybody else. He said, you do it. So I did it, but what was interesting, and I always tell this story, is at the beginning of the scene, I tell him to put his flag down. It was the old taxi, you put your flag down. And I start the dialogue. And we just did like a rehearsal. Then he looked at me and he said, make me put the flag down. And I understood, yeah. He's not going to put that flag down unless he believes me telling him to put the flag down. It's not a guy, it's not Marty playing a part, it's the real guy, you see. And so I improvised, put it down, I'm in charge of this cat right now, and I improvised it. And what was happening was that he didn't move his head. So was the back of his head, and I learned no matter what, that power, the way he had it, kind of like a pillar in a way. It had energy, it had danger. I didn't know when he was going to turn around and shoot me or something, or yell at me or whatever, but he didn't move. And that made me go further and further as an actor within the character. And all these crazy things came out. And basically it was really a great lesson as to how to behave as like a human being in front of a camera. It's very hard in front of a camera. You know, especially I act sometimes in movies, and like if they tell me to walk across the floor, I'm aware I'm walking across the floor, and I'm short and I look funny, and that doesn't. You know what I mean? I know I look. I mean, no, you can't think of that. You got to do it. You got to be it, and that's the key acting experience I learned was in that scene with him. So we've had that relationship over the years, and we're also attracted to the same material, I think, and the same characters. We weren't afraid. He was not concerned about, playing, let's just say, an unsympathetic character like Jake LaMotta that we created. Paul Schrader and all that. So we were just not afraid of it. We did it, and in a funny way, we did it and didn't care about the consequences of whether I could make another movie or not. Yes, I wanted to, but I didn't quite care anymore. Just, we got to get this one done and I'll do something else, until I get to something that I really want to do.
Real artistry. Real artistry. And I had to ask that because I know in music, there's artists who work with producers and have a lot of success, and then they go off and do something else, and then it's not the same. There's a lot of bands who break up, and you're like, why don't you guys just get together? And so you guys, I know it's not easy with any people, but I've had producers myself, and it's like, I want to work with this guy, we have a great chemistry, but he doesn't see it the way I see it, I don't see it the way he sees it. And I think to have the chemistry that you guys have is very inspiring.
I just want to say one thing, with Marty, in our experience, he's always been not afraid to try the things, as he said, just do it. And we would talk a lot, have these long conversations, but also we talk about parallels in whatever we would, in our experiences that we could then put into the film. This scene is like this, I remember something happened to me, blah, 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 he'd say, and so that's what we sort of arrive at, let's, try this too, but it's not the actual thing, but this is like that experience that you had, or he had.
Yeah, I mean, that's why it becomes, people say, how do you work together? I can't tell you, because a lot of it's very personal. If we tell each other certain things, we may forget it later on, but, at the moment, it's so real, and it's so visceral, and it's so intimate, that nobody else should hear it. Mind your own business. It'll come out on the screen somehow, if we're lucky.
Two minds in one, man. It's like one brain. Two genius minds working like. Bob, in Goodfellas, when you're in the factory and you're telling Henry Hill's wife, just come on back. No, it's right here. Come on, I'll show you. I was scared. I said, this is off script. This is reality. And the films were telling us about life. And you guys are very aware of the world that we live in. The films tell you that you guys are very aware of this world. And it was something in your hearts to give us a mirror of the world and the society that we were living in, or are still living in. Even teaching us stories like with Killer Moon, man, like just things that I didn't know about. I didn't know about Jake LaMotta until I saw Raging Bull. I was too young. And then after that, I did a deep dive into his whole thing. So just appreciate you both, and I appreciate being here and being able to talk to two gentlemen who I grew up watching and learning from, and it's nothing to compare to your journey and the art that you've given us all. and we want you to not stop, ever. Thank you for Mean Streets. Thank you for everything you've done in cinema. And we're looking forward to the new films. Thank you for The Irishman. I can name them all. We love them all, and we love you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Martin Scorsese and Mr. Robert Niro.